Uh, Good evening, students and leaders. I am Pankaj Gupta. I head business for Godrej Housing Finance. Uh, we at Godrej, we are trying to build a world-class financial services business. I'm very excited and glad to uh, to address all of you today. Uh, I'll be addressing the growth dimension of BFSI sales in future. When I'm saying growth for future at this point in time, for those who are looking for short term, may feel what am I talking about? I'm talking about growth, but it is for long run and long term. I'm talking about, and uh, the overall presentation would take about 45 minutes. I'll be happy to answer all your questions at 3:45. We will try to answer most of the questions. Uh, and in between, if somebody has any question and if you feel needs to be answered immediately, so please feel free to ask. So starting the flow of presentation, this broadly is around the ecosystem of lending in India, and this data is completely based on the approximate numbers. I would request all of you to just focus on the concept and not only on the exact number of the presentation. So we start the presentation now. This is the overall broad context of what I am going to speak to all of you. This includes retail lending and mortgages market. When I'm saying retail lending, this is personal loans, uh, all the credit related products, which is loan against property, retail, or business loans, or some kind of SME loans or consumer based loans. Mortgages, when we say, it is primarily loan against property and home loan business. So then we will come to home loans market, and we will touch upon the topic of uh, potential to grow. How much potential is there, and how can we see the growth in market. We will cover how sector will emerge after COVID-19. This is again very highly unpredictable, but looking at the sector, looking at the scenario, looking at the assessment at initial level, we have jotted down some of the expected points. So uh, there is a discussion on risk management culture. So when you are lending, when you are giving money to customers, you need to follow the risk culture properly, else there can be an accident. So we will talk in detail about this. We will talk about low touch and fast and digital. Uh, so when we are using this word low touch, fast and digital, we mean that the customer needs to be met. So there are products in retail lending wherein you can't or you should meet customer, which are low touch products or no touch products, I would say. So we will speak about that in detail. Data and analytics, which are driver of decisions today, we will speak about that. The last, which is more relevant for most of you, since most of you are working professionals and upskilling yourselves, and some of you are students, which I've been given to understand. So we will discuss about that. Looking at the market overall, we will start the presentation with the scope of market. Retail lending and mortgages market overall in India is approximately 18.62% of GDP. So I'm only specifically saying on retail market and not including the numbers related to commercial lending. So this is the overall spectrum of retail lending in India. Mortgages alone contribute to about 12.5% of GDP. These are exact numbers, specifically of mortgage. 24 to 25 lakhs, basically 24.86 lakh is the scope of this market. When we are saying scope of this market, this number basically is annual number of all the banks and non-banks put together. So this is 10% of GDP. The number of other countries. So India today is at about 10% of GDP size in terms of home loans specifically, and 12.5%, which includes LAP also. So in India, mortgages market is 10% of home loan, I'm specifically saying, of the GDP. If you compare it with the overall market of the world across geographies, across continents and countries, you see this penetration to be at about, on an average, 35 to 45%. Some of the countries have this penetration to the tune of, you can clearly say, 70 to 75% also. But if you look at China, if you look at Asian countries, in some of the countries, this ratio is about 25% to 35%. So what does this reflect? This reflects that India is a consumption-based market. Indian population is in the world is second highest. So India's population requires consumption, products, basic necessities, and loans also today are a basic necessity of the population. So this has huge scope of growth. Overall, banks versus non-banks, 60% versus 40%. So banks contribute in retail lending 60% of the lending ecosystem. Non-banks include 40% of the lending system. So non-banks and housing finance companies are equally part of the overall spectrum. Non-banks ranges from a very large organization of 1 lakh crore balance sheet size to a small non-bank of a 1,000 crore size also. But then this is overall the market size. The way forward of business is, I have put down Camel's approach. So this approach is not new. Internationally, this approach is being used by most of the rating agencies to assess organizations' health. So organizations' health is assessed basis Camel's, which is capital adequacy, asset quality, management efficiency, earnings ratio, liquidity, and overall system of taking the percentages in metrics. So when we say company which has right capital adequacy, asset quality, management efficiency, earnings ratio, and liquidity. So these things are not new. These things are quite old and established. But players, but companies who will manage these ratios well will not only survive COVID, but also thrive in the long run. Some players will come and go from the market, but broadly, mortgages market has enough size, and this market will continue to grow. So I can see a question. So retail lending and mortgage, there is no big difference. Retail lending means any loan which is given to customers directly by the bank or a non-bank. So mortgage is a product. Mortgage means the property which you hypothecate and give loan to customer, and mortgage also is a retail product. There can be a commercial lending also, but mortgage and retail lending typically means mortgage is a product, retail lending means a loan given to a customer. So so we see the scope of home loans market and potential to grow. So as I spoke about the GDP in detail, that 10% of the GDP size is of home loans, which leaves the room for growth in the next, I would say, not only just a couple of years, but next 20 to 30 years, because the market size is such, and dynamics of our population is very positive. Our population is 65% of population of less than 35 of the age group. So if you ask from a business perspective, it's very, very healthy to have a population of young, population in nature, which is the young customer needs products for lifetime. So young customer needs product for himself first, then for his family, then for his kids. So these data points, 65% population of the country, which is less than 35. So India is a young country. India would need, every nuclear family would need homes, and hence we all will see in future that people would be coming out in the market, barring the couple of big events, which is like COVID or demonetization. It may impact for some time, but broadly economy will come back on track. So we are seeing rising nuclear households. We are seeing the household nuclear families are, because of urbanization and entire demographic is changing. Urbanization is happening. Big cities are becoming much larger. Smaller cities are becoming bigger. Hence the scope of job enhances, and a lot of people get not only just jobs, but their lifestyle gets changed. So they need house. So they need house and they will buy a house. A young guy who gets settled down will always buy a house first, and then when people see scope of home purchase, and then home purchase is connected with most of other products which are like which are furniture, which are painting and all that. So overall economy grows. Government of India has got Housing for All initiative of 2022. At this point in time, I'm not able to comment on whether they'll be able to achieve. Because of COVID, there will be some impact for short run, for 6 months or 8 months or so. But there will definitely be positive momentum. If some of you are aware, government has taken a step to enhance the scope of PMAY. PMAY is basically direct subsidy to buy a home. It's an interest subsidy, which was within an income group of about 4-5 lakhs, 6 lakhs to 12 lakhs earlier, and then it now has a scope extended to 18 lakhs per annum income. So people who are earning 1.5 lakh rupees a month, up to that, starting from 30,000-40,000 rupees a month, will always be covered under this PMAY scheme. This is available on all the social media platforms. You can Google it. You can know about this, and eventually this will be. We see. I mean, it's an individual opinion, but overall, a collective group view also at our end is that importance of owning a house as an asset will be new normal. So for the last 8-10 years, we have been seeing a very, very kind of, I would say, measured, controlled growth. But then we see in the long run, growth will come. Growth will eventually will be in the market. So overall, what we see as potential, and at Godrej Group, we've decided to enter in housing market in spite of the short-term challenges. Godrej Group believes, we as a company, we believe that there is huge scope for the long run, and there is no business for 2 months or 6 months or 1 year. The business establishment is for a couple of decades, 4 decades or long run. So which is called an institution building. So I'll just try to take one. I think I've answered this question. We'll move to how will the sector emerge post-COVID. So these are broad points related to multiple decisions of organizations, which I think partnerships will emerge after COVID, because a strong organization complements some other kind of weak organizations. So we will see some of the players will start having mergers, partnerships to be strong enough in the market and will be able to offer products. So one organization, for example, has a good distribution but lack of capital. There's another organization which has more capital and less of expertise or distribution. So there will be synergies among players after this event, because running an organization requires not just capital but management efficiency as well, as I spoke during my last to last slide. But this would emerge like a very positive shift in the strategy of banks or non-banks, both ways. We see there will be focus on retail. So there will be a focus shift. In fact, for the last few years, for the last 4 to 6 years, focus has already started shifting on retail. When I'm saying retail, for those of you who do not understand, the segments, most of you, I'm sure would be understanding, but retail is a sector, or retail is a segment which is direct consumer who consumes the product. So loan given to an individual is a retail loan. So 100 crore loan given to a company is not a retail loan, it's a commercial loan. So retail focus will grow. Since our economy is consumption based, we see that a lot of people will start buying the products, and I think that also balances the risk of most of the companies. It is always prudent. You can see in India, retail franchise has been built by India's largest bank. SBI is a retail bank. Most of the retail banks are doing very well. And non-bank which are into retail financial services are doing very well. So why they're doing well? Because the risk gets balanced. So my next point is sustenance and growth. So when you are in lending, when you are giving loans, when you are having a distribution, how do you make sure that your distribution remains healthy? So how do you stay in business? So in lending business, the business is actually of risk and not just of lending. So we see that sustenance and growth would be primarily happening to those players who really focus on the risk balancing. So when you give money to 1,000 customers, your money comes back, and hence when your money comes back, and hence you get more money to deploy. And when you earn money, then you deploy more capital in your business. So we see that organizations will become much more risk balanced rather than being hungry for balance sheet growth. So retail balances this, and along with that, you need to have a risk culture, which I will speak in the next couple of slides, which I have. Innovation in products or product delivery is another thing which we anticipate in future. This has already started happening for last few years, but this will further accelerate momentum, because customers' needs are changing every 3 to 6 months. So you see a customer needing a product today in different time horizon, and a product. So just to give you an example, right now in the last 2 months, customers' need is what basic FMCG products, which is required for home, and medicine customer needs. Now companies are adapting their strategies to deliver that product in hygiene manner or so. So this is the time, the stuff is changing, the scenario is changing, and needs of the customers are changing. So organizations which are not agile, which takes a long time to adapt to market, will lose the opportunity in the market. So customers may need assurance on hygiene, customers may need assurance, or for that matter, customers may need loans without meeting the bankers or without meeting the non-bank finance representatives. So if customers need loans and they will feel that they are prudent and without any data given to banks, how do banks or non-banks take out the data information through social media, through bureau, through digitization of Aadhaar or so. So this will happen. We see government also initiating some actions around this. Moving to risk management culture. So I'll spend some 5 minutes around this slide. Risk management culture, I think culture, most of us understand that culture is a set of practices we do every day. So we see, or this is the outcome of COVID-19, that a sudden one virus suddenly makes the country shut for, not only the country but the world shut for 2 to 3 months. So your revenue stops coming in, your expense goes up, and on top of it you carry or pose a threat of your portfolio your loan portfolio. So your loan portfolio gets deteriorated, the money doesn't come back, your revenue lines are stuck for a couple of months, and how do you survive in the business? So this is called risk management culture. I personally feel that all the organizations from from this events learning will start moving on to creating the frameworks of balancing themselves in terms of capital preservation, balance sheet protection, and also expense management. So being frugal in managing your expenses, managing your customer segment very, very closely, and it is not going to happen on a 6 months, quarter, or a yearly basis. This is going to happen on a I would say on a daily basis. So organizations will not have one role for multiple departments. So there will be different departments. There will be credit, there will be risk, there will be operations, there will be silos, as well as maker checker models. There will be tech driven underwriting, but then analytics will be used. So while the responsibility will be split across yeah, Gitika? So there are a couple of questions with regard to growth and demand in that industry. How about the management growth into this industry? Any plans for capital? So I'll address this point. I'll address this point once the session comes to an end. Understand. So I think Geetika's raised hand. So you can ask the question in case you want. Please ask question and answers session or the box here. So fraud control is another thing. Nothing is more I would say worse than fraud control. So fraud control hits the organization much worse than the normal loss, because fraud is directly hitting the confidence of the company. How confidence of the company gets hit when a fraud happens. So I feel that there will be a lot of data analytics and lot of technology being used for fraud detection. People will see minute details before getting into the lending final decision. So fraud control is not just finding out what is there in the loan post giving the money to the customers. Fraud control is when you really find out that money going to customer and the timeline to give money to the customers. In that turnaround time, how do you investigate exact information about the customers? So sharing repositories, I think repository means the database available with most of the banks and non-banks. So that database sharing, and then knowing that if a customer does fraud with HDFC or ICICI, one bank, how do other banks or other non-banks find out a common platform of the same fraud customers getting known to each other? So there will be synchronization among the banks and non-banks. There will be synchronization of I would say the data pool, and then everybody will be able to access the data. Collections, I think collections is the most important piece of business. If you are able to do collections, you can if you are able to really collect your money, then only you can lend it back. So my view is that collections is not just the post-mortem of the data which is in front of you, but to actually figure out in advance that how collection is going to happen. So infancy focus, which is like early warning signal, which means when you are able to see that customer is in bad time, basis your data propensity or your health check of portfolios. When it is going well, in your good times, you do check on customer portfolios and make sure that you cure customers better at right time. So I think the entire shift will happen from just doing a post facto work to a usage of data in terms of changing models. There will be another change in collections, which will be having the model of relationship in collections. So collections would always be a I would say you will always need empathy, or you would always need an understanding hand with customers, which thinks about customers' point of view also. So if you have a relationship view with customers who are going through bad times, a customer who's going through a tough time, how will he pay you back? So if a customer who is not having his revenue intact and he is not able to pay you back, so organizations will also understand customers' viewpoint, so that loyalty of those customers and relationship with those customers go hand to hand, and you just don't see your customer who is in little trouble as a bad thing for you, because you listen more about their challenges, you handhold them and you cure them by offering solutions which you are able to. So I think these 4 lines of business: risk, credit, fraud control, collections, which in a typical business scenario, being in business, you generally overtakes business overtakes the risk function and credit controls and fraud controls and collections. So after this episode and after this big 2-3 months or probably 4 months event which is happening with us and which will happen with us, you would see that there will be a lot of thrust on not just the business function but the other pillars also, which when you are in business you tend to overlook and do not realize that this can become a big problem for you. So another question, how do you think would BFSI sector be able to control and absorb current crisis? Would it be able to create enough liquidity in the market? Would banks start charging customers to keep money in banks, negative interest? So nothing like that. Nothing like that. So what I see is it will not happen. So there will be, since this is not happening to one company, since this is not happening to, I would say, this is a black swan event. So this is an event which has happened across the world. When it has happened across the world, everybody understands the impact of the event. So what will happen? People would not hesitate to take negative growth for a couple of quarters. When I'm saying negative growth for a couple of quarters, which means April, May, if there is no business, then you can't show growth. And if in reality the business is not happening, so there will be some impact on balance sheets of banks, non-banks, and most of the companies which are not into banking sector also. So they will absorb their expenses, and this will increase in a certain level of, I would say, negative growth. This would, to some companies which are very prudent, which have cash flows, lending business always has AR and AUM, which gives you income so that your expenses are taken care of. So you will see certain level of compression in margins. But I do not think that any company, any bank or non-bank has the luxury of charging customers or negative interest from customers. So there will always be moratorium given to customers, some relaxation given to customers, but no exploitation of customer is something which we expect. So the dent is on the profits for short period, but in the long run, I think companies who are prudent, companies who are having the long-term orientation to survive and thrive will survive. But companies who are imprudent and who do not have the sufficient capital for business or prudent business model, so they may find it difficult to survive in this tough time. So we move to this is quite interesting and important. Low touch, fast and digital. Fintechs today in India are growing, and fintechs are making life easier for customers. So those of you who understand fintech ecosystem, so fintechs are based on different ideas. So fintechs are based on you can say clearly some of the fintechs are giving 10 days loan. So there are fintechs who give loan for 10 days, which is salary bridge loan. So you exhaust your salary by 20th of the month. For next 10 days, you don't have money in your hand. You need money to buy some product or live your life. So you buy that loan for 10 days. So it's a Western concept which has come to India, but and loans are given to you without any, I would say, paperwork. This is entire digital. So these kind of fintech ecosystems are evolving in India, which would further become a big game changer. So you are already using a e-wallet or a any, I mean, without getting into names of the e-wallet companies, you name anyone, whatever e-wallet you use, you will be able to get loan from that. You will be able to have multiple things, your bill payment, further your enhancement, your credit card becoming digital. So a lot of stuff will happen around fintech ecosystems. And since we see, we all of us notice that government is also giving its thrust on digitization, on DigiLocker, on eKYC, video KYC. All these things are happening by government, which will help the ecosystem to become a very, very strong, I would say. So India in 5 to 10 years from now, and India 15 years back. 15 years back, India used to have what? In Indian ecosystem, you used to have only couple of softwares to figure out who is a defaulter, who is a non-defaulter. There was no bureau, nothing else. Today, you have entire information about the customers through social media. There are companies like Trusting Social, Singapore-based companies who get data extraction from system or social media. There are companies in India which provide you scorecard based models. There is bureau. So today, if you want to know about customers, you can know much more than what even customer knows about themselves. So that is the kind of data availability which is already there. And this we see this getting accelerated, and this comes to a level wherein customer buys a property, takes a home loan, everything online. So we at Godrej Properties, we are trying to offer properties online. We have entire demonstration happening of properties online. We are trying to create a capability wherein customer buys property online, takes a home loan online, and we connect the entire bridge. So we are working on video KYC, we are working on eKYC. All these details we are using and making sure that we create a platform which is quite easier for customers. So lending environment would continue to open up with real estate developers, as I said, giving you example of Godrej Properties and Godrej Housing Finance, channels, customers, vendors, more connected through these platforms. So you would see that a channel partner who is sitting in Gurgaon may be able to offer online proposition to a customer in Chandigarh, and then connected to Mumbai. So customer connected from Mumbai to Chandigarh through a broker. Will that happen? Yes. Now, how will that help? How will that help customers? So that will help customers in one interface. So customer will be given one interface. Customer puts up the data. Customer comes through a reference. Entire thing happening end-to-end digital. That is future. So far in India, salaried customers come on digital platforms because they are working on laptops, they are working on their MacBooks, they are working on their iPads. They come on system. They connect with banks and non-banks. They take products and then they move on. But SME in India, SME when I'm saying small and medium enterprise, they have their typical chartered accountants sitting in their office, accountants sitting in their offices, and then they have brokers. Now, this ecosystem is not digital. So with most of the companies coming together, with most of the companies, creating this kind of a business model, you will see overall the entire gamut of the chain of those customers, those brokers, everybody will come on digital channels. So when you're not having anything, so when the entire business model is digital, then how will you stay away from that? So a shopkeeper today understands merchant establishment, POS machine at his shop. Shopkeeper understands Paytm today. Shopkeeper understands phone pay, all that. So if shopkeeper now SME or self-employed is able to understand all this, shopkeepers will also understand how to secure a loan online, how to secure products online, and this is the future. So there'll be hyper customization of products. I had touched upon this 20 minutes back. Hyper customization is customer needs a specific product for a specific need. So as I said, a loan given to a customer for 10 days, 21st of March to 31st of March. You need loan for only just 3 days. So when you need loan for just 3 days, or 10 days, then how will you secure? So this is called hyper customization. There will be different needs. When there are different needs, then there will be different products. So I think hyper customization is future. Companies which are agile and which are able to develop products basis customers need. My limited knowledge says that Amazon creates a change in the process in less than 3 to 4 minutes, any big change or small change. So if the companies across the globe are so adaptive or agile, which are making their changes impact the business models in less than 3-4 minutes, then I think hyper customization in India will happen. Regulatory compliance and municipal bodies, all these, I think many of the processes already are digitized, and many of the processes will get digitized. So today you have your tenant. If you have a property, you give it to somebody on rent. You have online registration model. Somebody comes to your house, he takes your Aadhaar card, you just put your thumb on it, you get e-authenticated. Once your authentication happens, then it's online and done. Now this used to be 5 years back, this used to be unimaginable. Today this is happening. I think in future all these things will become digitized fully. It may happen that tomorrow you want to even sell your property, or you want to do the registration. You don't need to go to registrar's office, which is government's norm today. You need to be, as a seller or buyer, you need to be available. So there will be adoption of technology in future. That's how I see. So there are a couple of questions I can take now. Would this mean paperless would get developed even in the housing? Yes. Answer is yes. Paperless in housing loan will happen, but it can happen in certain pockets. It will take some time to take entire process online. But if you are asking me that properties which you are buying today with a developer, so there is a possibility that in very near future we will see that that entire chain becoming easier for customers, and then it becomes digital. So customer sitting at home buying a property of a reputed developer, buying a loan, and then registration, stamp duty he pays, and then with Aadhaar card and all that. I think that is quite possible. May not be relevant question. How would one manage under crisis if has no alternate source of income or lost jobs? How would one just manage taking loans? So it's a very interesting point. I think little out of context, but I would try to answer. So one of the most important dimensions of your financial management, financial ecosystem management is you really focus on your finances for future. So it'll be a very important point to note that if as a young manager, leader, or whatever capacity you work for, if you are not financially prudent, I'm talking about the customer now, I'm talking about the consumer now. So if as a consumer you do not focus on your preservation of your personal emergency funds, then it is going to be a very tough situation. So I am right now not able to comment on those who have lost their jobs or lost alternate source of income. But definitely, going forward, this COVID crisis will give a lesson to people who live their life only on loans. So it's little personal advice, but in my experience, financial literacy or financial understanding at an individual level must play an important role after this COVID, because 3 months if you have to sit at home, 6 months if you have to sit at home, no income. If you are not financially prudent, then there is no way you can escape yourself. Then you need to ask from your friends, family and colleagues, or whosoever you can. But in terms of loan outstandings, I would, my suggestion would be take loans only when you know that you can conveniently pay the EMIs. So if you can pay the EMIs of say 50,000 rupees a month, then take loan of that much only. So if people take loans uh, just by seeing the availability of loans, and then they are finding their time tough. So you need to run it parallel. You need to have your financial backup. You need to create an emergency fund, 5 lakh, 10 lakh, 2 lakh, 20 lakhs, some of the money surplus with you to handle this kind of COVID situation or any other situation which may arise in future. So I think personally, this would be a very, very big key takeaway for even entrepreneurs and end users. So is it applicable for travel agency? If yes, then how? So travel agencies are the ones which are already online, and I think which are already using these models. So we'll move from this to data and analytics, the driver of decision. So data and analytics play an important role in any company's business model. So what is data and how analytics help organizations? So data is what? Data is the information available to you. Information available to you about customers, not just customers. Information available to you about your employees, their birthday, their anniversaries. So all the information which is available to you, how do you use that information into actionable from a tacit knowledge? So if you move that into actionable, if you have data, just to give you an example, if you have data of customers and you get to know that most of your customers are about 30 years old, then how many customers are married, or how many customers have families? So basis that data, you can create products and you can offer solutions to them. If you have data about customers, that how many are using 4-wheelers and how many are using 2-wheelers, you get to know the standard of customers, their standard of living I'm talking about. When I'm saying standard of living, you get to know that customer is upper middle class, customer is middle class, or customer is affluent or mass affluent or mass. So there are customer segmentations. You get to know basis his home ownership, basis his car, basis his 2-wheeler, basis education degree. Somebody is passed out of Harvard Business School, somebody is passed out of Guru Nanak Dev University, or somebody is passed out of Delhi College of Engineering. So basis the degrees, basis the cars, basis the age, basis the bureau score, all these things are all these things comprise of data, and this data is used to offer products. So I think data and analytics would help most of the companies to create instant loans. Like for a bank, if you know about customer, that this customer has very, very strong relationship with you for last 20 years. Now customer going to buy a credit card from some other company, why can't you offer a credit card without a paper and a documentation and a verification to your customer whom you know for 20 years? So these kind of products, better customer lifetime value management will happen. That customer's life is spent with you. His past 20 years and his kids and his future 20 years are going to be used as data for offering him products. To create empirical process control. So when I'm saying empirical process controls, those process controls which are very, very, I would say, prudent. I mean, those controls which do not have the scope of any leakage and pilferage. When I'm saying leakage and pilferage, if your data engine is not working well and you automated entire company on your system, which has a certain level of, I would say, certain level of loose data filtration model. Now, then you can be, having high risk in your overall balance sheet. So you need to create those empirical process, maker, checker, and then random sampling and all that. So these are the processes which will be used basis data. Create products on demand. So customer has come to you, customer is buying a home, he's buying a home by paying 20 lakhs, he's securing a loan of 80 lakhs, 100 lakh is the property value, but customer wants to buy furniture. So if customer has taken a loan of 80 lakhs, he's given from out of his pocket 20 lakhs to buy a home. Now customer needs another 3 to 4 lakhs to just buy furniture. So can customer buy furniture with another 3 to 4 lakh bridge loan, which you can create basis customers bureau score or customers demographics? Answer is yes. So, but can you offer it to all customers? Maybe no. There will certainly be great customers who are outstanding customers. Why should you treat a customer A with customer C in a same barometer? So your treatment to a customer A who is highly prudent and a customer C who is just mass segment customer, your offering will be different. Your treatment will differ, may not be the respect level, but the offerings to that customer, the freebies or the more enhancement to customers will be different. You will improve people and system productivity. So when a customer takes loan in 2 days, when I'm saying 2 days, customer applies to you and gets end-to-end loan in just 48 hours flat, then it enhances the productivity of people. Otherwise, few years back, one loan used to take on an average 12 to 15 days. So if it takes 12 to 15 days, then how can you make your people deliver more business? People can deliver more business only when they are free from one transaction. People cannot be going on the field every day and serving different customers. They need to serve customers well, and they can only serve customers well if they have better systems, better data processes, and better decision making. So that's what data and analytics will do in future. Manage your risks better, propensity model, early warning signals. So this data input will be shared with most of the departments, and every department has a different role to play. Data will be function of, I would say, data will be function of one department, which is BI or artificial intelligence and machine learning together, or big data. That data will be fed to most of the departments, and they take their decisions basis the data available. So all this gets covered in that. This also helps the marketing team to run campaigns, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Insta, on Twitter, on all the available social media platforms, wherein customer is sharing his information. Somebody who's a travel enthusiast, will get certain offers. Somebody who's just looking for certain level of requirements will get that. So huge customer data and powerful tools and methods adds to competitive advantage in commoditized industry. So commoditized industry means what? Commoditized industry means any product which every customer needs, like your basic grocery at home loans or homes everybody needs. So these are commoditized products which are offered by most of the players. So all financial services players, most of them, banks and housing finance companies, offer home loans. So these are commoditized products, but you need to create service advantage, product advantage, and segmentation of customers so that you are able to give much more value to customers. So I will try to take a couple of more questions if there are any. How real estate industries come because, as we all know, that demand will decrease. Real estate industry will see some short term of demand slowdown, but overall, if you ask me, real estate industry today is already very lucrative. I would say lucrative when I'm saying you will never get a 3 BHK in 60 to 70 lakhs in a city like Pune. Today it is available. So real estate industry in the last 8-9 years has already become very, very highly affordable to customers. I think this is the right time to buy a home. In the next 6 months, you can buy homes. In the next 9 months or 3 months, you will see very lucrative deals happening around. Average property price, barring Mumbai's, central Mumbai or Delhi's, South Delhi kind of places and Punjabi Bagh kind of places, the real estate in NCR and real estate in MMR and also in Pune and Bangalore has become quite affordable to customers. I see a real estate industry will come back. People will buy homes, and that's not just a positive sentiment. That is a reality, because 5,000 to 7,000 rupees square feet today, you are able to buy a house. So a 1,200 square feet house or a 1,500 square feet house, you can buy between 60 lakhs to 80, 90 lakhs. I mean, 2 to 3 BHK in this range with all the amenities, I think sector is quite affordable. It is just that the momentum which will come in market as you start seeing normalization in next couple of months. So quick question, would it be always necessary that customer would always try spend or have lavish products, like for say upper middle class may use Indian brand car rather than affordable exotic cars like base models of BMW? It all depends upon customer choice. I cannot comment on suddenly there will be a shift that customer who likes BMW will start buying Indian car. I am not having any firm view on this. It can happen tomorrow that there is a shift in India that people start buying domestic products, but it is not going to happen overnight. So if you ask me if Maruti 800 can compare with BMW, I mean, the segments are different and the choice is different. So it all depends upon customers. But yes, when such kind of crisis comes, the most number of customers start holding on to their expenses for lavish items. So a 5 crore rupees flat in Mumbai or Delhi will have less probability of a sale, but 1 BHK of 40 lakhs to 60 lakhs will get sold. So because more numbers of customers need to buy that. So definitely there will be some impact on lavish products, but brand shift from BMW, Mercedes to this, I am not very sure, but yes, this will get impacted. Would such data always stand true in prediction? That is the intelligence you need to build. So I am not going to say that data is always true. So data will never overtake people. So people using data. So as I said, tacit data into actionable insights. So there is data available to you, but final decision has to be taken by somebody on data who is expert of industry. For example, I have in last 20 years, 19 to 20 years of my career, I have met about 5,000 to 7,000 customers on ground in Delhi NCR, in Mumbai, in all the parts of the country. But that is the collective experience plus data. So your experience plus data adds to your judgment, and judgment can go wrong. You will meet a customer, give him loan, and that customer at the time of giving loan and that customer at the time of recovery will behave in a different manner. But having said that, your judgment cannot be wrong in 100 cases. So if you give loan to 100 customers, only one can go bad. I mean, that's the maximum. I am saying that is the maximum allowed limit for a lending company. Because if your judgment and data both are wrong, then you can't survive in the business. So you should have data, you should have experience, and basis your data and experience, you can take the call. So what is amortization or amort principle? Amortization is a period of staggering the EMI. Amortization is if a customer takes loan for 15 years, what will be his EMI for 15 years? And if a customer take loan for 10 years, what will be his EMI? Now there will be certain schemes in amortization which are like you get holiday or EMI free period for 1 year. So that is called scheme, amortized, but that has to be structured. So amortization gets basically it's an agreement between the lender and the borrower and the terms of those loan repayment. That's called amortization of principal is your actual your money given to customer, and interest is the interest on that principal which customer is agreed to pay to you. Will COVID-19 situation make prices fall of properties in a metro like Delhi, Bangalore? Very difficult to answer. Some impact will be there in the short term, but properties are always for long term. Property correction, big correction will not happen. Some sort of short term desperate sale can happen. So some customers who are having shortage of money and who want to sell their property just for the sake of couple of stress points, then they can sell cheap. Otherwise, there is no major correction expected in Delhi and Bangalore. Sector has already corrected too much in the last 8-9 years. So property in 2001 to 2008 has gone up very exponentially. Property prices from 2008 crisis onwards to 2019-20 have already moderated so much that there is no much scope of property prices going down. So I think these questions are done. So we move on to future of jobs in BFSI, which is which I said. So one of my advice to all the working professionals who are there on call and all professionals is that your career and overall organizations. So the view has to be long term for everyone. Any organization which has a short term view may not survive. Any employee who works with a short term view that this year is the most important for me, it's a marathon. 3 months impact will be there, 3 to 6 months impact will be there for slowness, but then this impact is not going to be there for long run. Eventually economy will come back on track. When I'm saying back on track, may not be getting growth, but momentum will start, full momentum will start back sometime in 2021. It may happen that it happens in Q3 of 21, Q4 of 21, but definitely for the first 2 quarters, this quarter and next quarter are going to be challenging. This quarter probably will be washed out for some time, but next quarter you will start seeing things coming back on track. Already there are yellow zones and green zones where things are back on track. But next quarter onwards, you will see momentum coming back on track. So there will be less transactional in nature, and jobs will focus more on stakeholder engagement. So you will see there will be much more maturity and skillfulness would be expected from people, that you have the skills with you and not just the orientation of doing a job. So how do you add value to the job, and more collaborative approach, emphasizing on co-creating value for customer. So you would see future of jobs would be there, but future of jobs would be more in technology, more in business, more in you can say learning and development. Why? Because organizations would try to focus on in-house talent more. Employees would also upskill themselves for understanding digital ecosystems. For example, a sales guy doesn't understand technology. He will always be in soup, because technology is going to be the lead, and sales will happen through technology. And if you don't understand technology, then it will be very difficult for you to offer solutions to customers. So will involve a lot more analytical at entry level. So there will be a lot more intervention of analytics and data. Will require individual to conceive, structure, and communicate ideas across effectively. So for example, if the service culture is not there in the organization you work for, if you really create a culture which is not positively influencing customers, then it will be very difficult for individual and also for organization to survive in the long run. So this is how we see changes happening in future. There has to be certain comfort with technology. Sales and operations will have high digital component, as I said. So there will be technology adoption happening more than anything. So I have seen those times in 2005, 6, 2004 to 2007 period when people used to carry files with them and travel here and there. So we transitioned from those heavy files to platforms like Salesforce.com or platforms like normal softwares where file is moving through digital, and even the channel partners enter data on system, and data moves through various stages. There is one view of customers, and you can do everything with that data sitting in any part of the country. You can take decision, you can approve cases, you can reject cases, you can seek information from your teams, you can do communication with your teams. All that will continue to get enhanced. So ability to have a holistic understanding of business, you just can't sell and go away. You will have to understand sales is not for one time. For example, a home loan given for 20 years. You cannot just sell and next month focus on the next customer and forget the past customer. So you will have to have holistic understanding of business, that customer needs are different. Customer goes through various cycles, and that's how we would expect employees to have that holistic view of business, customers, and everything. So skills related to big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, these are the skills people can upskill themselves. If you understand data, you are in demand of fintechs, you are in demand of banks, you will be in demand of non-banks. Everywhere you will be in demand. Higher EQ, or to be able to collaborate and engage. If you are more empathetic, if you are able to understand your people, your teams well, if you are able to motivate your teams, if you are able to engage with your teams, I think you can do much more than what a normal employee would be able to do. So if today I can understand my team's language without even them speaking, that how they are feeling and how they are behaving, then I think there will be much more bonding than just asking questions and being focused on only business numbers or the key deliverables. So ability to learn and adapt to situations, this is the most important piece. Like for obvious reason, we all are sitting at home and working from home for last 2 months now. So we are adapting to situations. Technology adoption has gone very high. We are giving presentations on video calls. We have now adopted to technology. The same way, certain employees do not adopt to the changes which happen in the marketplace also. So if you adapt quickly and make it part of your life, it'll be very easy for you to. So just to give you examples, you guys are working professionals. Some of you may believe that I have been born in sales and I will be always a sales guy, or I am an operations executive. I will never focus on risk. So I think the future would be shifting business models, shifting from lines of business, products. You are doing personal loan, start doing liabilities. You are doing insurance, start learning. So in the next 10 to 15 years, those who are adaptable to situations and those who are willing to learn new things and new skills will grow, will get jobs, and will also get a rising career. For some period, 3 to 6 months or 9 months, it doesn't matter that your career is stagnant or slow for some period, but if you have a long-term orientation, you will do very well. So career growth, we see most of the organizations would develop their in-house talent, and I would encourage most of you to focus on your learning, focus on other departments' key learnings, and this is how you can broaden your horizon and do well in your life. So this brings me to the end of presentation. I would try to take more questions if there are any, or we'll wind up the session. So the question is, Saurabh has asked this question: what will be impact on domestic trade and international trade on housing? Domestic trade and international trade on housing. So there will be, international trade, I'm not very sure. NRIs, if your question is that NRIs buying properties, so the answer is yes, NRIs are even today buying properties. For the last 2 months, we've seen some sort of sales happening through NRI sales. Our couple of channel partners who are Dubai based have sold some properties, and we've seen NRI buying. There is no much impact in terms of international sales other than that. So domestic trade, domestic trade, I think some slowness for 1 quarter, then it'll start gradually coming back. So even today, IT industry is undergoing crisis. Many reports coming in which indicates bubble that might be worse than 2008, though but both cannot be compared from situation perspective. IT industry gets revenue from client. If client itself is under risk or financial crisis, how does this chain manage over? So I would encourage all of you to focus only on positive stuff. See, everybody today needs to pass time. So everybody is saying something or the other thing. But anything and everything which is coming to you has to be backed by data. So if data comes to you, you can definitely read the data and analyze and interpret data. But in my understanding, some sort of challenges would be there. Somewhere there'll be some job cut and so on and so forth. Industry specific, for example, airline is going through crunch, which is coming back from 25th of May. There can be hotel industry and one or more industries like travel. There can be some challenge in that industry for some time. But IT industry as a whole will not crash at all. So nothing is going to go away from the market. Markets are already seeing normalization across Europe, and even US is getting open up. India is on the verge of getting completely open up in a few days from now. I personally do not see too much negativity for the long run. Short run, this quarter or next quarter, definitely yes, but not in the long run. So another question from Shweta, is this COVID pandemic will affect senior people jobs near to retirement age in job? So I am not sure. I don't think it will impact senior people jobs. If you're asking high paid jobs or so, or retirement age, if you're saying, I mean, I don't think it will impact anyone. So nobody can get, I mean, specifically in PSU sector, nobody can get retired early or so. It definitely depends on individual's choice who want to get retired early. In my understanding, no senior people jobs will get impacted. So any other question, I'm happy to answer. Otherwise, thank you so much for being on the call. I think it's wonderful speaking to all of you. Thank you so much.